and fill the paper with the message that it wants to send.
Hello and welcome to the Aviatrix Book Review Writer's Room. I'm Liz Booker. My guest today is the author of 7 books, including the upcoming Cradles of the Reich, an historical novel about 3 women living in a Nazi Lebensborn breeding home at the start of World War II. She is also the founder of Jen Coburn Communications, a company that offers writing, media, and book promotion services. She joins me on the Aviatrix Writer's Room today to share her insights about the relationship and services provided by a hired book publicist. You can find her at her websites, jennifercoburnbooks.com and jencoburncommunications.com. Jennifer Coburn, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so interested to hear about your role as a publicist, and I just want to mention how we were connected, and that is through our mutual friend and author, Robin Carden, the author of Fly Girl and Angel Flight, the Fly Girl series, and she speaks very highly of you, and I thought that this topic might be of interest to our other already published writers and our aspiring writers, so I appreciate you taking the time. And I was hoping that you would share a little more about yourself. I mentioned that you've written 7 of your own books. And how did that lead you to promoting other authors' work?
Oh, that's a great question. So I was working in media relations at Planned Parenthood for many years before I had a Planned Parenthood of my own and started a business doing media relations for nonprofit companies. Planned Parenthood among them. And then I published my own novel, and I started applying the principles that I used for nonprofit publicity to the promotion of my own books. And I started having success in getting my books in the newspaper and magazines, on the radio, and other authors started saying to me, how did you do that? How did you get yourself all of this media? And I thought, like, well, what, how didn't you? So because it's not a natural thing for most people, don't like doing pitching. It's very pushy. It's very, like you're talking about yourself. It's not something that comes naturally to most people. I'm from New York, so I'm a little pushy by nature. And So I said, well, how did you pitch yourself? And they said, oh, I sent out a press release that said, I have a new book. And I thought, well, that's why you're not getting any press, because I have a new book is not a pitch. And they said, hey, if I paid you, would you do this for me? And I thought, oh, I've never done that before. What would I even charge? What would how? And they said, let's just do it. I trust you. I know you're going to, we'll both learn on the job. So that was about 7 years ago. And it really is the same as pitching anything else. You just have to figure out what's the relevance to the end user, and then figure out how to present that to the media. So more and more authors started telling their author friends, and now it's about half of my business is promoting authors.
Wow, that's so cool.
The shorter answer is, by accident, I stumbled into this.
It's so great. So tell us, you've kind of given us a little bit of an idea about what a book publicist or book promotion does, but can you give us just sort of an overview of the services that you typically provide?
Sure. I specialize in media relations. Other publicists do different things. There are people who book events for you. There are people who do the whole gamut of bookstore signings, events, media relations. But my niche is getting you in the media and figuring out what is that story that differentiates you and your book from other authors and their books.
That's interesting. So if you're someone who kind of wants to hit all of those things, you either manage one portion of it yourself and then hire somebody for like the media portion, or you find different people to help you with different aspects of it.
Yeah, so I do the media portion, and I do work a lot with other publicists who don't specialize in media, and they subcontract with me to do that portion of the work. But so what I have found is that I want to reach the greatest number of people possible. So what I found working with Planned Parenthood is, where are those people? They're in front of the TV, they're listening to the radio. Now they're on social media. So I've started doing that with clients as well. And that's kind of what I do the most for myself and what I really believe in. Events are great. I have a book coming out in September, and I don't really know how to do events, or actually I do know how to do events, but I don't know how to book 50 events for myself. So I hired somebody to do that for me. So some people hodgepodge it together. Some people work with another publicist who hires me to do media relations, and sometimes they hire me and I subcontract out to do other things.
Okay, that's really, really interesting. And by the way, congratulations on your upcoming book. It sounds fascinating. I definitely want to read that one. So thanks for writing it. I'm sure, just like all your other books, it was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, and it is entirely different than anything I've ever written. I've never written a historical novel before. Usually my books, my novels have been romantic comedies. And then the last book that I wrote was a mother-daughter travel memoir called We'll Always Have Paris. And then this is a historical novel about a Nazi breeding program. So there's no humor and there's no fun travel with your daughter.
So Robin raved especially about like your regional reach, because are you in San Diego too?
I am, yes.
Yeah, so she's based in San Diego. She said that especially for her, your help in getting her in local media was really spot on. Is that kind of a thing that you specialize in, or do you like, if somebody came to you from, the East Coast and said, hey, would you help me? Are you able to do that too and like explore those markets?
So I've worked with East Coast authors, but really what I've worked with them on is their San Diego leg of their tour. For example, there is a wonderful memoirist, Eileen Zimmerman, and when she did her national tour, I really zeroed in on the San Diego market for her. So that is my specialty, yes. But with Robin, she was the first pilot that I worked with. And rather than just pitch her to San Diego media, what we did was we developed a list of aviation publications, and we pitched to those as well. I've had clients who are they are psychologists. So we do San Diego, and then we do psychology magazines, newspapers, podcasts, etc.
Okay, that makes sense. So if you are the kind of publicist who focuses regionally, what is the best way for an author to find a publicist that's going to fit the market for them? Like, how do you find you guys?
So you can go to Public Relations Society of America. Each city has its own, each major city has its own chapter, and you can put a notice on their board that you're looking for someone who specializes in books. And that's how I get a lot of my business, is other PR firms who don't really do books, or a lot of my clients come from bigger agencies who aren't interested in a smaller budget account. And that's kind of what I specialize in, is a smaller budget. Somebody who's not looking to spend $15,000 on a campaign.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Which is what they, which is what many of them cost. And worth it. And if you got a great advance and you've got the budget to do that, that's a great way to go.
Okay, that's all fascinating and really good advice. So at what point in a book's evolution should an author be looking for a publicist?
Looking for a publicist, I would say a year out, depending on what they want. So let me just give you a couple of examples. I have a book coming out in September. I contracted with my publicist 2 months ago, and I will need to pay her in another 2 months because she's going to be working for a year to book me at events on the East Coast, to do keynote speaking engagements. Someone like me who's really specializing in regional media, I take 3 to 6 months in advance.
And so tell me about that relationship, especially for you. I mean, I can imagine that somebody who's booking events, there's a lot of back and forth that goes with that, and they must be heavily involved in scheduling and deconflicting and that kind of thing. But for you, for a relationship with somebody like you who's putting out media, how do you construct that? What does it look like? And if you are comfortable talking about how much it costs or what the ranges are, that'd be awesome.
You bet. So I will tell you, like I hired a publicist to book. She said she'll do between 15 and 20 live engagements for me, and that's $15,000. But I figure, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to travel to 8 to 12 states. And what I will do, she will not do this, I will do this for myself, is I will contact local media in those markets and tell them that I will be in town for an event, and I will pitch it to their radio stations, their TV shows, and try to drive traffic to those events, or at least raise awareness about my title. I will say this, if you are working with somebody who specializes in media relations like me, and we can talk about rates as well. I take a look at the package that the needs of the author. And most people say, you know, I want to do a 6-week campaign, 6 weeks leading up to the launch. And that's about $3,000. I work at a rate of $125 an hour, and usually it takes between 20 and 30 hours. I tell people that you really want to have more hours, even though they go, yeah, you want more hours, but the truth is they want more hours too, because it means I'm booking more TV spots for them, radio engagements for them, etc. And we're working on preparing them for those interviews. So you should expect to spend no less than $2,500. Sometimes clients come to me and they say, I've got $2,500 to spend, and that's really a bare minimum, because if I get you on a TV show, I absolutely insist that we do a media relations training beforehand, because I've been doing this, not book publicity, but publicity for 25 years. And I can't afford to send somebody on TV who is going to blow it and undermine my relationships with these media folks. And some people are great. We need a 1-hour rehearsal, they're good to go. Robin was one of those people. We did a quick rehearsal. I said, all right, let's put you on camera. Other people need more work.
Yeah, just more coaching and like public speaking and confidence. Is that kind of what you're working on there?
Well, what we're really working
honing
on,
your answers.
Honing your answers, yes.
Okay.
You really want to zero in on what you want to talk about in the time frame that you have. If you're on TV, you have at best 5 minutes. So you don't want to, like right now, we're having a more free-flowing conversation. I can tell you a story. I can go off on a little bit of a tangent. But if you've got 5 minutes, you cannot afford to do that.
You mentioned that you would do like a 3 to 6 month campaign for a single book. But are there other ways that relationship can look? I mean,
yeah. Absolutely. So I did say 2 different things, and I just want to clear up any misunderstanding. So we would start working together about 3 months to 6 months in advance, but then the actual campaign itself, the actual reaching out to news producers and editors, would start about 6 weeks in advance and lead up to the launch of the book.
And then you're done. Once the book is launched and it's out in the world, that relationship is sort of over.
I have an author who I'm working with, and her book came out 1.5 years ago. Now, we've been working together since the launch, but we do a lot of social media. I create social media posts for her. I boost them. I give her advice on maximizing their reach. We're experimenting with Instagram Reels. And then this morning, I just took a class on TikTok for authors.
I just got on TikTok.
Yeah.
I have, in 4 days, I have over 150 followers.
That's wonderful.
Anyway,
Wonderful.
sorry.
That's quite all right. So
hey, I'm writing for young adults, so I got to be there.
Yeah, you do. That's
Yeah.
really, yeah. And it's funny because they showed a lot of these really fun, cute, clever. I love TikTok. I love watching TikTok, but I'm writing about a Nazi breeding program. So I have to kind of be careful that I don't do anything too cute, or I might come across as being glib about the subject matter.
Yeah, it's kind of a heavy topic for TikTok, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm talking about airplanes. Everybody wants to watch an airplane fly.
Absolutely. And they also want to know what goes on in that cockpit.
One of the things that Robin mentioned was the challenge of kind of measuring effectiveness of any of your efforts. Have you found any way? I mean, do you offer stats to authors to say, hey, I will, getting your book out there to out into the traditional press and the traditional media is going to increase your sales by X amount? Like, how do you measure that?
Yeah.
You're investing all this money.
So. Right. How do you know what your return on investment is? So it's really easy when you have a relationship like the events planner. I will do an event. I will watch books being sold. I will sign them, and I will be able to say, like, hey, I just spent $15,000 divided by 20 events, and we sold 100 books. I'm making up these numbers, by the way, 100 books per event. Therefore, it was or was not worth it. Now, traditional media is hard to measure because how do you know? Nobody's going to go to the bookstore and say, like, I'd like to buy Angel Flight. By the way, the reason I'm buying it is because I read a wonderful article about it in the San Diego Union Tribune this Sunday. So since there is not that type of tracking with traditional media, social media, there is a bit more tracking, but with traditional media, you just have to kind of watch the trends and the overall ebb and flow of your sales. So one of the things that I did when I had my book, We'll Always Have Paris, when it first came out, is I wrote a story for the Washington Post, and it had nothing to do with mother-daughter travel. Now, this is one thing I want to talk about, is a lot of times I suggest things for authors, and they're like, that's not about my book. That's not encouraging people to buy my book. And we don't want to get too salesy, because if I were to try to pitch something to the Washington Post, the San Diego Union Tribune, that was a straight up like, this book is amazing and you should buy it now, they would say, hey, why don't you buy an ad, because that's what you're pitching. So I wrote a story about my dear aunt, the destruction of her diaries, and how devastating that was for me. So that didn't mention my book except at the very end. It said Jennifer Coburn is the author of We'll Always Have Paris, a mother-daughter travel memoir. And anyone reading this story who thought, I like her voice, I like that, and I'm interested in mother-daughter travel, my sales spiked that week. That was the second best sales week that I had in, I think, a 6-month period. So can I definitively say, yes, that was because of the Washington Post? No, I cannot. Would I bet $5,000 on it? I would.
Yeah, no, that's such great advice. I actually heard this from a memoir writer recently, Amber Smith, who was a helicopter pilot for the Army and served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And she's now like a foreign policy analyst and commentator. And she said the same thing. You write articles that are not related to your book, but in the byline, it says by Amber Smith, author of Danger
right.
Close. And so it's there. So people who are interested in the article want to find out more about you and go look for your book. I love that advice.
Yeah, a lot of authors miss that opportunity. I think the main mistake that authors make is that they are too eager to see a an immediate payoff on their investment. They want to have an article run in the paper, and then the next day they want to see sales because of it. And it's really more of a slow burn. Even though I had a spike after the Washington Post, and even though Sally Plough, who is a middle grade writer, who she wrote a book about a character who has autism, and we just got chatting about her books and about autism. And she said, you know, I'm autistic, and I wasn't diagnosed till I was 55 years old. And I said, how is that even possible? How did they miss that? And she said, well, first of all, they weren't really diagnosing when I was a kid. And second of all, the signs of the autism present differently in girls and women than they do with males. So they are often underdiagnosed. So she wrote an op-ed piece about how doctors often miss the diagnosis of autism in girls. And that it did have something to do with her book, but it was more about a trend that was going on. And she wrote an op-ed piece. It was published in the Miami Herald. It was published in about 5 different national newspapers, and that did drive sales. However, that is not what typically happens. You know, results are not typical. What typically happens is somebody sees a newspaper article and they go, oh, that sounds good, I should get that. And then they see you at an event and they go, oh, yeah, I remember that book. I go out there. And then they'll see somebody else read it on Goodreads and they recommend it. And they're like, you know what? I gotta buy that book. And then it takes about 6 touches before people make a purchase. So I know. So you really need.
Well, that's really helpful to know. Thank you. Because right now I'm not only promoting, I mean, I'm kind of doing some amateurish dabbling in your field here because I'm trying to promote the general body of work about women in aviation on my social media and in any way that I can. And so that's really helpful to know.
Yeah. And you want to have 6 touches on different places, on Instagram, on social media, traditional media. And you know what? Sometimes I hear about a book and I go, I want that book, and I order it right away. And other times it takes me like 8 times, 10 times, 12 times. So you really have to keep at it. And then you have to, and then how do you attribute, like, what do you say worked? All of it worked. I remember when I worked for Planned Parenthood, one of the things that somebody was analyzing our data, and they said, you know what works best? Google search. And we were like, no, Google search doesn't work best. It's that their friend told them about Planned Parenthood, that they saw a billboard, that they saw us at a community event, and then they searched for us on Google. It's not that they are like, I wonder what Planned Parenthood, I wonder where I should go for birth control. They've heard about us before. So that is what you're doing with public relations, is you're building, you're trying to buy space in their brain.
Oh, that's a really great way to put it. So tell me what advice you have for authors. What can they do to set themselves up for success for book promotion? Both if they were going to take it on themselves or if they were going to hire somebody. How can they set themselves up to be ready for your services?
Okay, well, so ready for my service? Well, let me just start with what can they do to ready themselves, and it's constantly changing, because when my first novel came out, I was all about morning zoos. So it's the time and it's the type of book that you have. And if you have a fun, light book, let me back up 18 years. I wrote a book called The Wife of Riley. It was about a woman who was secretly trying to find a new wife for her soon-to-be ex-husband. So she put ads in the paper. That's how old this book is. Ads in the paper trying to find her replacement. So again, I'm not going to pitch this as Jennifer Coburn has a new book, because no one cares except my mom. But what I did was say, like, hey, recycling your ex, is this a new trend? No, actually, it's not a new trend. And I'm not saying it is a new trend, just asking the question, is it a new trend? So that's the kind of light book that lends itself to these morning zoos. And those are those drive time shows where it's like, hey, it's Jenny and the Bear. And, and they're really amped up at 7 o'clock in the morning and they have contests and they're super excited. So so I booked about 40 different radio spots where we talked about, have you ever been recycled or have you ever recycled an X? And then once every 10 or 20 minutes, people were calling in and telling their stories. And then every now and then they would say, and we're on the phone with Jennifer Coburn, who has a new book. And that was it. So what I'm doing now, my book is coming out in a year, Cradles of the Reich. There's nothing I can do. There is one call to action I can make, and that is put this on your Goodreads want to read list. You can't pre-order it. There's no pre-order link. There's no cover I can show you. There's nothing I can do there's nothing I can ask people to do other than to put this on their Goodreads want to read list. So the reason I want to do that is because I know I want readers to get a reminder on the day it's available for pre-order and the day that the book launches. The Goodreads will send you an email and they'll say, you said you wanted my Goodreads voice is a Jewish mother. So you said you wanted to read the book. It's out. You want to read it so much, go buy the book. So
Great.
So that's what I can do right now, a year out. What I will do, what I'm also doing to drive, so you may be saying like, well, how do I get people to add this on my want to read list? So first thing I do is send out an email to my mailing list and I say, put this on your Goodreads list. The second thing I did was, if you go to my Facebook page, Jennifer Coburn Books, you will see pinned at the top, hey, I'm so excited to announce that Cradles of the Reich is coming out in September 2022, and here's what it's about, and please add it to your Goodreads want to read list. And then there's a link to that. So I'm going to make it easy as possible for people to add it to their list. And then what I did was I did a contest. My book, Cradles of the Reich, obviously takes place during the Third Reich. And I found 6 other books that took place in the Third Reich. And I said, you know what? I made a little post that showed the covers of these 6 books. And I said, win all of these books. And all you have to do is go to my Goodreads, go to the Goodreads page and put this on your want to read list. And here's a link to make it super easy for you. And write a little note at the end of this post that tells me that you did it. And you'll be entered to win. Now, then you boost the post for like $100 or so, and you define your audience. You don't just say like, boost it out there. You say like, I want women who are between 35 and 80, well, 65 plus, and I want people who read historical fiction. I want to really narrow my audience. And you boost it to them. They find out about your book. They share it, which is amazing, and then they add this to your Goodreads list. Then what you want to do is you want to go on Instagram and you want to find bookstagrammers, and you can just go #bookstagram, and you're going to like wade through this sea of bookstagrammers, and you're going to make a list of about, well, however many you can do. For me, it's 500 bookstagrammers. They have to have over 1,200 followers. And you're going to write to them personally. And this is the test of endurance. If you can write to them personal messages, asking them to share this post about your giveaway until Instagram cuts you off, then you are that is my test of a champion. Like when I have a day and Instagram is like, whoa, enough, Jennifer. I'm like,
I've been there. I've been shadow blocked.
Yeah. And then you go back the next day and they say it's fine. And then you do 120 more and they go, okay, all right, easy now. So you get the bookstagrammers to share the news about your giveaway. Now, this will cost you time This will cost you money because you're going to do a boost of anything less than $100 is less results. I would just say just count on $100. And it will also cost you the cost of those books, because then you will have to buy the books and send it to the person. But, for about $200 to $300, and then, whatever your time is worth, you can build up a pretty significant want to read list. And what I just had a meeting with my publisher, and I said to them, hey, I don't know if this is just, if this is just a coincidence, or if this is actual data, but I notice that books that hit the bestseller list, like they're books that are going to hit the bestseller list. That they've had other bestsellers, so I'm keeping an eye on them in the weeks leading up to their publication. And I always go to them the night before their book comes out, and I go, how many people do they have on their want to read list? And it always seems to be at least 20,000. And if they're at 20,000 want to reads the night before publication, about 80% of those end up on the New York Times bestseller list. So I said to my publicity team at Sourcebooks, I said, am I just like making connections that aren't there, or is this actual meaningful information? And they said, no, that's meaningful. 20,000 is a good goal to shoot for. So that is hard work, and you will have to fight for you will have to work for every single one of those people adding your book to the list. I check in every single night, and I'm like, yay, I'm up by 3. Yay, sometimes I'm up by 20. And I'm like, oh my God, 20. So it's really like, here's what you want to do. Here's how I think of it. You are trying to build a huge sandcastle, one shovel at a time. So you're going to have to do it every day. You're going to have to work at this every day. Or I could work at it every single day. But honestly, that kind of grunt work, I think you don't need to hire a publicist for. I do have clients who say to me, I do have an unlimited budget. I don't want to do any of this work, and have at it. So I can do this for people, but it's also not the type of thing you need an expert to do.
I want to back it up just a little bit. At the beginning of this, and there's more to this that I want to finish up with, but you mentioned your email list. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I keep hearing people talk about. I know how I manage my email, which is to delete everything. I don't read. I like people who have newsletters or whatever. I may read 1 or 2, but I don't keep up with that. Are we still, as authors, doing newsletters? Are we still doing this? Is that something that you need to have an email list?
I wouldn't say a newsletter, but an email list you do want to have. And I think.
And how do you get it?
So when you do events, first you add every one of your friends to your email list. And then on your website, there should be an option for people to sign up for your email list. You don't inundate them with nonsense, or else they will leave your email list. Every time you have an event, people will want to join your email list. And then I think the real key is, one, realistic expectations. Newsletters and emails just don't get a high open rate. They don't get an open rate. If you have an open rate of like 25%, you're doing amazingly well. And the key, I think, to doing that is a great subject line. If the subject line is, hey, everybody, I have a new book, you can expect people to just go ahead and delete that quickly. The line that I used to announce my new book was Nazi breeding program, subject of new novel. So the first thing,
that's catchy.
If they're only going to see a couple words, it's Nazi breeding program. And the reason that I decided to lead with this is that when I talk about my book, I say, hey, it's about this Lebensborn Nazi breeding program, and people go, whoa, what? there was a Nazi breeding program. How have I never heard of this? So I don't want to lead with new book about, because if you only get 3 words, if somebody's looking on their phone, what you want them to see is, it sounds terrible, what you really want them to see is Nazi breeding program. And everything else,
That's
if they
absolutely the
see
hook
that,
for that one.
they're gonna be like, Nazi what?
Yeah.
So they'll be more curious about that. And it's not misleading. It's exactly what the book is about. So why not lead with the most interesting words?
Yeah, for sure. You just gave us like so much excellent advice. I like, you've just packed this in so much, especially like for what authors can do for themselves, on their own. So what makes a good client for you?
Okay, well, I can, boy, let me start with the positive and tell you what makes a good client. And then I can tell you what makes a client who I can tell in our first conversation that this is not going to work, and I usually pass on the opportunity to work with people. What makes a good client is they have a great book, they love their book, they know why they love their book, and they are open to different ideas on how to market it. Like if Sally Pla said to me, I am autistic, but I don't want to talk about it, I would be like, oh my God, why? Like that's
just wrote a book about it. That's ridiculous.
You just wrote a book. Or I've had people say, so if they're very open to talking about themselves, their personal life. One person, she had a book, and we pitched her to Home and Garden, and it was like her gardening tips. Now she could have said to me like, what the hell? My book has nothing to do with gardening. But she was game, and we got her a little piece in Home and Garden, and she sold. We believe that she sold some books because of it, because her sales did see an increase. People who are teachable and are good on camera, who are, I would just say flexible. Flexible and go with the flow and just say like, all right, I'll give it a try. That makes no sense to me what you're suggesting, Jennifer, but why not? And I love people who will take a chance, take a risk, and try things differently. What makes somebody impossible to work with is if they have unrealistic expectations. This is somebody I passed on immediately. This guy called me up. It's like, yeah, hey, I want to talk about what you can do for me. I'm thinking about hiring you. And it's like, dude, I don't think you really understand that this is a 2-way street, and I do not work with everybody. He said, what kind of sales increase can I expect to see at month 1, at month? Look, that's a reasonable question, but the way he was presenting it was so obnoxious, and I could just tell that he was going to be a nightmare to work with. Because
good for you for rejecting that one.
He said, I have my eye on the New York Times bestseller list. And I thought, like, you do? Oh my goodness, that's so unusual. I was hoping my book would be on the worst seller list. I can't. Yeah, so you want to sell books? So somebody who just kind of thinks they're a genius, and they're expecting it to happen next week, and So those are people where I say, I don't think this is gonna work. Somebody who I love. Okay, so Robin, I loved working with. And one of the things that we did was cockpit confessions, and it was like all the things that you wanted to know about what goes on in the life of a pilot, but we're afraid to ask. And the questions were, I said, Robin, what do people ask you about? And she's like, they always ask about turbulence. Well, her book doesn't have anything to do with turbulence. I mean, one could say they're turbulent relationships, but we had her on talking about, like, what the heck is turbulence? Why do I have to, like, what are we hitting when the planes start shaking?
In what medium were you doing that?
The TV.
Oh, really? Okay.
TV, and then we didn't pitch this, but one of the things that I'd like to pitch for her was during the one thing I would suggest for pilots is during the holidays, pack like a pilot. Like, what kind of tips do you have to pack your bags in a way that only a pilot would know? Or how do pilots deal with cold and flu season? What kind of things are they doing to make sure that every passenger that comes in and says, thank you, doesn't also pass their flu on to them? So I love clients who are open to ideas that don't seem like they are going to directly discuss your book. Great pitches rarely are about, like, I have a new book and it's about this, and oh, my character does this. People hate that, and news producers hate that, because you're supposed to be buying an ad to do that, and viewers hate that because they don't want to be sold to. What they want in the end is information that will add value to their lives. And if we can put together a package that adds value to the end user's life, the producer will love you, the host will love you, and they will not only love you, but they will have you back.
Man, Jen, you have absolutely proven your worth in this small discussion that we've had today. Unbelievable. I'm totally sold on
Thank you.
Working with a publicist for sure. We probably need to wrap things up soon, but I did want to say, you're going through a traditional publicist or a traditional publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard this from so many authors right now that publishers aren't doing anything in the way of book promotion for authors. And what are you receiving? Anything from yours?
Well, I'm really happy with my publisher and their publishing team. One of the reasons that I chose to go with Source Books is that when they made their offer, they presented a 40-page marketing plan, and the others were all delightful and they would have been beautiful to work with as well. But none of them offered this laid out plan for me. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be working with a lot of bookstagrammers, high volume bookstagrammers. They're going to be doing a national press release, a press book tour, and I hired somebody else to supplement the book tour. So I believe that they are going to be doing a lot. That said, most publishers for most books are not doing a whole heck of a lot. I just had lunch with a friend of mine who was with a major publisher, and the major publisher said to her, we're not going to be doing anything for you. So, well, they didn't say it in so many words, but her takeaway was we're not going to be doing anything for you. So a lot of authors are doing work on their own. They're hiring publicists, and they are learning how to do it themselves.
You may or may not be like expert in this, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway. So are the publishers the ones sending out the advanced reader copies? And are you familiar with BookFunnel to get early reviews on books?
So I use NetGalley to get early reviews, and my publisher uses NetGalley and Edelweiss. I don't know that they use BookFunnel, but the answer to your question is yes, it is the publisher who's sending out ARCs. But you as an author can request that ARCs are sent. So you're catching me at a great time, because I just got back from New York 2 days ago, and during that trip I had a lunch with the publicity team at Source Books, and I asked them, so when I sent out the note to bookstagrammers and said, hey, can you share the info on my giveaway? I thought, while I'm communicating with them, why not ask them like, hey, if you'd like an ARC, not an ARC, I'm sorry, if you'd like a book when the book comes out, because bookstagrammers do beautiful things with their books. And I want them to get a nice hardcover so that they can like put Edelweiss plants on it and flowers on it, or beer mug, or whatever they want to do. I want them to have a beautiful hardcover book. So I said to my publisher, I offered a bunch of people free books. Did I just commit to buying like 50 free books, or will you send that? And they were like, yeah, we'll send that. And then I also said to them, how many ARCs can I send to my friends with the understanding, like I am super clear with my friends. Like I say to them, I send out a mass email and I say, if you would like an advanced reader copy of Cradles of the Reich, or last time I did this, it was We'll Always Have Paris, I will send this to you in exchange for an honest review on Amazon, Goodreads, BarnesandNoble.com, like wherever you review books. And just to be super clear, I'm not giving you a free book. This is not a gift. This is an exchange of, like I'm giving you a book in exchange for a review. And if you are super clear with people and then you follow up with them and say like, hey, my publisher sent you the ARC last week. You should be receiving it in a few days. If you don't get it, let me know. And then the week before publication, like, hey, next week is publication. And if you haven't started the book, this is a good time to do it because I'll be looking for you say it nicely, but you definitely make your expectations super clear with an out that like, and I didn't do this last time, but I will be doing it this time, with saying like, hey, I'm really excited to see your review. If you feel like you can give the book a 4 or 5 star review, I'm excited to see your review. Because some people, like, there was one person who like started a Goodreads account so she can give me a 3-star review. I'm like, really? Just
no.
Like if you're going to give it a 3-star review, just skip it. I'm going to pressure you to give me a review, but this time I'm going to be a little bit more clear, like that I am looking for.
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything.
Right. So, but I do, yeah. And I have people right now that I have like a 1-star review on Goodreads right now. I'm like, you didn't read the book. How are you giving it 1 star? Like, you don't like the idea of the book. Like, how are you? What are you talking about? So okay. So back to the publishers. You ask them, how many ARCs are you willing to send out for me to my friends, and they will have very clear expectations set by me that they're going to be reviewing this. And the answer from my publisher was 50.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the answer to how many hardcover books can I send to bookstagrammers that I identified was 50. And they said, please stop, because they didn't say please stop, but they said, please know that we have high volume, like really, really popular bookstagrammers that we're in contact with on our own, and we plan to send to them as well.
Okay, well, so they are offering you some good resources, it sounds like. So good for you, because not everybody is getting that experience. So, but it's nice to know the questions to ask too, as an author, working with your publisher. So very helpful information.
Yes, you should be talking to my book isn't out for another 13 months, and I had lunch with my publicity team 2 weeks recently. So you want to get a meeting with them as soon as possible, because you want to let them know, like, I'm excited about this book, and you're not. And when you have the meeting with your publicity team, you're not going in saying, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. Although there are things that you do want, but what your number one thing you want to communicate to your publicity team is, I want to be a great author for you. I want to help you sell 1 million books. That would be amazing. But like, how do we work hand in hand to do that? That's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear like that you're a diva and you're like, what can you do for me, darlings? I'm going to be sitting back and drinking my martinis while you all do the work. You want to show them that you're there to roll your sleeves up and do the hard work too. And you want to be part of the team to make the book successful.
Jen, you are so great and so much fun to talk to. Is there anything else that you want authors to know about this process, about book promotion and the services of a book publicist?
I want authors to know that even if you are self-published, even if you are with a small publisher, even if you've got a teeny tiny advance, you can make this book a huge success. You can make your book a success. You have to let go of the idea of the author sitting back and just doing the writing. You are half an author and you're half a publicist. Even you're half a promoter. Without being obnoxious, you have to put yourself out there. You have to humbly ask for help from your friends while setting clear expectations of what they do. And there is an image of an author who sits back with his quill pen or her quill pen and does nothing but do the writing. And I would just say, let go of that and think of yourself as an integral part of the publicity team as well. Yeah, and you will sell a lot of books.
I think you're right about that. Oh, Jen, thank you so much. I want everyone who watches this to make sure to go to Goodreads and put Cradles of the Reich on your TBR list or want to read list. And is there anywhere else we can do that? Well, whenever you tell us
that it's... No, but if you want to learn more about the book, or if you want to join my mailing list, it's jennifercoburn.com. Not jencoburn.com. jencoburn.com is me as a publicist. Jennifer Coburn is me as an author.
Yep. Okay. Good to go. Hey, and so check out my literary Aviatrix account, because like I said, I'm like amateur trying to figure out how to promote people's books, sort of half bookstagrammer, half pilot, cool flying stuff, just sort of branding the whole package. So check it out and let me know how I'm doing.
Yeah, I will do that. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk to your viewers.
Yeah, thank you so much.